In the spring of 2023, the regional power grid across Punjab collapsed. Within the first 72 hours, 43 of the 47 logistics firms in the sector went completely dark. One company stayed online. They kept shipments moving and held their clients while the rest of the market scrambled. The person maintaining that continuity held no special title or corner office. She was a local operations manager who simply never stopped showing up. Her survival wasn't based on a backup generator. She relied on a handwritten notebook of customs ledgers and supply relationships she had maintained for years, knowing digital systems fail exactly when they are most needed. She didn't plan to become the strategic center of her sector. She earned that position through invisible, patient work, learning the manual workarounds and building the trust required to keep things moving when the official channels died. This reveals a shift in how systems actually function under stress. When the macro structure fails, the load-bearing infrastructure of the world is often just the individuals who refuse to break. The 20th century was built on a logic of standardization. Large institutions used scale and efficiency to ensure that every individual component, including the people, was essentially replaceable. But that same efficiency creates a global environment of permanent systemic instability. Because our systems are so integrated, they now break in unpredictable, unmodeled ways that a central authority cannot manage from the top down. This creates the sovereign node, an individual operator who stops being a component and starts being the actual infrastructure. When the grid fails, other nodes route through them simply because they are the only ones still functional. Survival now depends on a specific operational question. Can the system continue to function if one particular person is unavailable for 72 hours? We call these individuals sovereign weavers. They are the people who have never been important on an org chart, but the organization begins to visibly dysfunction within a week of their departure. While managerial authority comes from a title, these weavers hold custodial authority. They earn it through the sustained delivery of service over thousands of ordinary moments, building a reservoir of trust that activates the moment a crisis begins. The strength of these nodes is measured by human integrity density, or HID. This is the concentration of people who can exercise independent, mission-aligned judgment without supervision, even when communication channels are down. The IDF formalizes this through mission command. Junior officers operate multiple levels above their rank, ensuring graceful degradation under pressure. This prioritizes deep mission intent, creating a node capable of acting correctly when original instructions become inapplicable. There is a critical operational distinction here. Loyalty is an emotional state that often dissolves when the stakes become real. Reliability is a behavior maintained through practice, becoming the only authority that gets stronger as the conditions get harder. A node with energy independence and a full supply chain is still fragile if the person in charge cannot think. Physical resilience is useless without cognitive sovereignty. Most decision-makers now live in the distraction matrix, a state of perpetual cognitive fragmentation caused by algorithmic loops and information saturation. It is a sovereignty problem, not a productivity one. The micro-sovereignty protocol counters this through the deliberate management of your attention. It involves curating information inputs to ensure the volume and emotional charge don't exceed your capacity for clear judgment. Certain forms of complex reasoning require the absence of stimulation. High-quality decisions aren't made by those with the most data, they are made by those with the most cognitive quiet. In a major disruption, every competitor is cognitively degraded by stress and information overload. Maintaining reasoning clarity under those conditions moves your node into a different operational category entirely. A sovereign node cannot exist in a vacuum. If you are the only resilient person in a network of fragile people, you will eventually be overwhelmed by their demands when the system breaks. Professional survival requires moving from a standard network to a minimum viable mesh. A network is transactional and often dissolves when reciprocity becomes uncertain. A mesh is relational. It is built to activate specifically when the primary system is down. 500 digital connections are an audience, not a mesh. Resilience is found in the 6 people who would reorganize their priorities to help you at 2 a.m. and whose judgment you trust to act on your behalf. We saw the cost of a missing mesh during the Challenger investigation. The engineers understood the technical vulnerability, but the governance channel required to route that knowledge to the decision makers didn't exist. The disaster was a structural failure of communication. In an era of instability, your broad network is largely a distraction. The mesh is your only true operational asset. You can begin building this architecture today by conducting a personal pivot domino audit. You must identify the single undocumented skill or isolated relationship you hold that, if removed, would cause everything depending on you to unravel. Hardening that vulnerability takes 90 days. You document the knowledge, diversify the relationship, and move from a paper plan to a tested operational reality. For 100 years, power was synonymous with the capacity to control through scale. Today, that scale creates fragility, and power is shifting toward the capacity to continue through architecture. Authority now compounds through reliability. It belongs to the node that others choose to route through when they have the choice, and the one they depend on when they don't.